introduction of our guest. And before I go there, in fact, just give me a moment. I will quickly send out one more set of sort of a reminder so that that. Perfect. What I'll do is, as I said, we will briefly introduce Mr. Nargish Khambatta to all of us. And as I said, we'll keep building on to this. Firstly, all of those who are joining us for the first time, we are annually doing this IPN top 10 priorities with all of you, in fact, wherein not only the leaders or experts who are joining us to share their top priorities, all of you also share these priorities with us, and with which eventually we arrive at the top 10 priorities by the end of these 5 discussions which we will have this year. This is 4th in our series of discussions. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been part of it. And I personally, I was just sharing that we enjoyed hosting these few sessions, quite different from each other. And similarly, we have very, very distinguished guest today, which is Mrs. Nargish Khambatta, who is the principal and the CEO of the GEMS Modern Academy in UAE, Dubai. And just for the benefit of all of you to get to know Mrs. Khambatta a little more better, while she's been with us once at IPN, but I will quickly share a very brief introduction with all of you so that you can connect with her and know her little body of work better, right? Which is Nargish Khambatta, who is the principal and the CEO of the GEMS Modern Academy and Senior Vice President Education at the GEMS Group. She is the recipient of the first ever GEMS Exceptional Head of School Award in 2018. With a master's degree in microbiology, she made the transition from teaching to educational leadership, having spent over 32 years in the field of education. As an avid proponent of positive psychology in education, she has been a panelist and presenter at 4 international IPN conferences in the US, China, and Australia. Prior to joining GEMS Modern Academy in December 2009, she has worked at elite educational institutions as well as large public schools, and has spent meaningful years at the Doon School, Dehradun, the Indian School Muscat, and the Sophia College in Mumbai. That is something which we all can read on the website, but let me share an interesting fact. She was also part of Tanishq UAE Family Face, in fact, right? And which I saw, by the way, which I was just Googling it and I saw you, and it was so amazing. And, apart from being an educator, there is a dimension of you which is so beautiful to understand. That is the way I would like to present. And in fact, when we are done with this session, I will share that video piece with all of you on IPN. Don't worry about it. So you can see how graceful she looks in that. And I have made her feel a little awkward, but she shouldn't be feeling awkward at all. You look sensational in that. And we generally want educators to showcase those dimensions to the larger world. As I mentioned, we will first listen into Mrs. Khambatta, which is her top 10 priorities or whatever that number is in the initial half, followed by we getting into a dialogue wherein you all can ask a question or you can share your observation on the discussion which we had, right? So I hand over to Mrs. Khambatta. Welcome once again and looking forward to listening to you. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Gaurav. And I've been trying to live down that Tanishq ad, and it seems to be haunting me right across. But thank you for raising it. Hello, everyone. I see my friend Malvika here. Hello, Malvika. It's been a while, but it's a pleasure to meet with you. And I guess I'm not so well known in your circles, Gaurav, and that's why there aren't too many people online. But I'm smiling because as educators, we it doesn't matter who the audience is. If one person is impacted, I think we've done our job. So, when Gaurav asked me to do the top 10 priorities for the year, and you're right, 10 are many. It's nine too many. But we thought, when I put my mind to it and I said, really, what is it? So, all of us have a school development plan, a school improvement plan, and we try and align our priorities. But then comes the big bombshell of the unexpected. And I think 2024 saw a lot of unexpected happenings in the world of education. And how will that influence how our school improvements plan change, how our alignment to our vision and mission changes? And I think when I put thought to that, I thought there were five dimensions. And if I thought if I can pick out one or two priorities in each of those dimensions, that's really breaking it down. And as always, we keep children at the center of everything that we do. And I thought if we keep the learners and learning at the center of everything we do, then my priority for learners, really, for the school and for the cluster of schools we lead, is to I don't know if you've read this book. It's actually flown off the shelves. It's called The Disengaged Teen, by Rebecca Winthrop and Jenny Anderson. And this is quite a phenomenal book. It's causing such a stir in the market. That's because, and we faced it ourselves, our teenagers are disengaged. Our youth are disengaged.
Okay.
They're so distracted by everything that's happening around them that it's really difficult. I mean, we all heard stories of children with their laptops open and, having four windows, which they become experts at navigating, and, they know which window to showcase when the teacher comes round. We've all experienced that. And I want to add a caveat here that I'm talking to the Dubai context, and not necessarily to the India context. So do keep that in mind as we're speaking. So our learners and our children, uh, why are they so disengaged? And what can we do to make sure that we get them to focus? Because if they don't focus, then what are we doing all this for? So with children as the first priority, really, and keeping Rebecca Winthrop's book, The Disengaged Teen, in mind, they talk about four types of learners. And they say today our learners are passengers. They're just drifting. They're just there. They listen to what they want to. They, don't listen to what they want to. It's like a hop on, hop off kind of a mentality that they have. And then they say we have the achiever. And these achievers could be either happy achievers or the disgruntled achievers. Nothing is good enough for them. We all know that kind of achiever as well. And then you've got the resistors, and they're the ones who resist everything, and they're probably the more gifted lot. And it's more of a challenge to keep them engaged. And then, of course, you've got the explorers. They just love coming to school. They love the learning. They love the challenge. They just love everything that you want them to learn. And then they push you as well. And so, what can we do to engage these learners? What can we make as our priorities? That's something that we grapple with on a regular basis. And I think there are three things that we've identified really. One is, of course, to personalize the learning. And I'm sure the questions are on how do you personalize? But yes, the personalization of the learning so that the resistors will bite, the explorers will fly, the passengers will stay on a little longer, and the achievers will become happy achievers. So I think, that's the whole purpose of that personalization piece. And of course, artificial intelligence, and I'm going to talk about artificial intelligence in a minute, and how to leverage it and teach our children prompt engineering to really get the most out of it. Because it is what can you squeeze out of it? You've got this whole big ball of AI, and think of it like a sponge, and you can squeeze what you want out of it. But if you don't know how to squeeze, nothing's going to come out, or nothing of relevance is going to come out. So teaching our children how to squeeze that AI ball in a way that's going to get them what they need. And of course, the third is the gamification. And I don't mean gamification necessarily in the technological aspect, but in every aspect of the word. And so my first priority for children really would be to re-engage with the disengaged teen. That's my first priority, right? The second one is I'm still staying with children. And I think sometimes we as educators do our children a huge disservice because we don't teach them self-awareness. We don't teach them self-management. And these are executive functions. These, if we don't master or we don't gain some level of mastery over this, then I think we're setting our children up for failure because they can be the most intelligent and they can be the most high achieving students. But if they're not self-aware, if they are not aware of this Korean term called nunchi, nunchi is a Korean term that means being able to read the mood in the room. So if they can't read the mood in the room, they're going to walk in and say disastrous things or behave in a disastrous way without even knowing the impact of what their words or their actions have had. And so making sure that our students really are self-aware, they know how to read the mood in the room, they can manage themselves, time management, self-management. These are skills that our children, and post-COVID, we've become lazy carers. And I say lazy carers because we say it's okay. I mean, this is the COVID generation. They've been through a lot. It's okay. And for some time, it was okay to say it's okay. But I think we've been
Correct.
saying it's okay for too long. Yeah. And so, to teach these children self-management, we're doing them not a favor, that's the wrong term to use, but we're doing them a service that will stand them in good stead for a very, very long time to come. So, and of course, the focus on well-being. But if they are self-aware, if they're self-managed, I think well-being is a natural outcome of being self-aware and self-managed. And you know what to do, you know how to take care of yourself, you know when to do what to do. So two things for children. One is to re-engage the disengaged learner. And secondly, make them more self-aware and be able to self-manage, teach them really nunchi. The second group, if we talk about children, then parents can't be far behind. And for me, the priority for parents would be to educate them about the power of obituary. And obituary is a Japanese term that means, so let me explain it first. So, in Japan, everybody knows of the cherry blossom. And the cherry
Hmm.
blossom is beautiful. I mean, who doesn't like those soft pink blossoms? But what many people don't know that along with the cherry, we also have the plums, we also have the peaches, and you also have the apricots. So four fruits bloom, but one after the other, not all together. It's the cherry that blooms first and gets the whole world's attention. And so the Japanese have
Oh.
coined a term for it. It's called obituary. And obituary actually tells you that in its time, in its place, at the right time, children will blossom. Don't rush it. You can't rush it. And I think because our parents uh, want the best for their children, and under the garb of wanting the best for their children, and sometimes, and I know I'm being a little harsh here, but it's just experience talking. Sometimes our parents do it for bragging rights. They want their children to be the best. It's their child. How can their child not get X, Y, Z into this college or that college or be part of this team or that team? And so they keep pushing their children. But so and so's in the team, how come you're not? Or so and so got 95%, how come you didn't? So a reminder for obituary, and that is, the plum also will blossom and the apricot
The
also will blossom.
cherry.
Yeah. So in its time, in its place. And then, of course, the second priority for us is to work with parents, really, to build connections with their children. I think somewhere, very often as an educator, I've heard, my child doesn't listen to me anymore. Do what you want. My child doesn't listen to me anymore. And so, really, to, get the children, get the parents to think that they are their child's greatest champion and cheerleader, not the child's manager, their child's cheerleader and their child's champion. And when the parent takes responsibility for that, the connection will come because they will have those authentic conversations with their children. They will show interest in what their children are doing, not just to know what marks have you got and what tuitions can I send you for. They will be genuinely interested in their opinions, in having those authentic conversations, really in spending time with them, in getting off their phones and having family time together. Enough and more of us have seen parents at buffets or at airports or at restaurants giving their children the mobile phone or the tablet to be quiet. It's almost become like a pacifier. Even the older kids, they're all on their mobiles and nobody says anything to them. So really working with parents to build connections with their children, I think that would be the second one for the parents. And we've talked of children, we've talked of parents, and then uh, how can teachers be far behind? And so my friend Sharda always says that go from being deliverers of lessons to being inspirers. So how do we get our teachers to really be inspiring? And I think if we are looking at how will the teacher really get on to inspire children, and they need that mindset shift themselves. If they don't get that mindset shift, if they have to just go in and deliver the curriculum, it's not going to work. And I think many of our teachers don't do that. Most of them don't do that. But I think a constant reminder, because teachers come with their own baggage. They come with their own share of, when they walk into school. I have literally seen teachers take a minute and shake their heads as if they're shaking off, the problems that they carry with them. And I think once they come into school, how do they inspire their children? They can do it by themselves being lifelong learners, themselves going on to really earn that learning currency, to ensure that they are micro-credentialing all the time. Surely the kids can't be ahead of the curve, at least not in their subject, not in the pedagogy they need to use in their subject. And so I think priority is for teachers to really be delivering lessons in an inspiring manner and by upping their own game. And this obviously gets linked to performance management, to performance appraisals, to setting goals, to achieving those goals and becoming aspirational. So for teachers as well, there opens up a pathway if this is constant and continuous. So for teachers, that would be really my priority. The third set is the administrative processes. And so I haven't put this down under teachers or anybody else because I think for us it is how can we make it less burdensome for the teacher? How can we convert it from from being a burden to really setting teachers free? And and to give you an analogy of the mindset shift, I was talking to somebody the other day and she said, I came across a fantastic term. She says, no longer do I say when her children graduated, she's saying, I'm not an empty nester, I'm a bird launcher. So, so how do you make that shift in teachers' mindset from the drudgery of I have to make lesson plans, I have to set papers, I have to correct papers, I have to correct books, and so the administrative processes around the academic administrative processes. How can we leverage AI to do that? In our school, we had a boy who gave a Teachers' Day gift last year in 2024. And that's why I said for us, it was a big shift what happened in 2024. He gave our teachers a gift. He created a lesson plan generator on
Wow.
yeah, in Dubai, we have the KHDA, the Knowledge and Human Development Authority, and they are the ones who really are the regulators. So they come and inspect us every year. And luckily, last year we didn't have inspections, fingers, toes, and eyeballs crossed. We won't have it this year. But basically, they do very rigorous inspections. And because of that, our class observations also are built around their rubric. So this young lad worked with our team and he took on the rubric, and he created a lesson plan generator based on the requirements of KHDA, linked to the SDGs, personalization of learning, use of data, blah blah blah. He packed it all in, and 78% of our teachers used it, and it's all AI generated. And they said that the accuracy levels were as high as when they were creating the plans themselves. Now, can you
Wow.
imagine it? Now, today we have AI generated lesson plan generators, but this was a boy on his own who decided to pay back his teachers and give them this gift. So, how do these academic administrative processes that are so full of drudgery, how do you ensure that you really, move from being very onerous and burdensome to freeing up the teachers, from being empty nesters to bird launchers, from having that mindset shift. My last group or set for prioritizing for 2024 is around curriculum and assessment, and to focus on really a power curriculum. Do we need to teach all that we're teaching? And we have a lot of leeway to play around up to grade 8. But 9 to 12, we always say it's fixed. We can't fool around with that. That's where, that's for the examinations they have to prepare and prep. But in the build up to that, and even for 9 and 10, how do we build a power curriculum where we identify, the singular central vertical progression column of knowledge that is needed for a child to progress? And children these days are really, they learn, they say up to the age of, up to grade 4, they learn how to read. But after grade 4, they read to learn. So they're really learning on their own. You just have to guide their path. And so if we have a power curriculum, those who are passionate, if you remember, we said we have the explorers, the Rebecca Winthrop and Jenny Anderson said, we have the explore. The explorers will explore and they will go on to read as much as they want about whatever they want. And so will the achievers and whoever needs to. But how do we, for the passengers, for the resistors, how do we make sure that we have that singular column of vertically progressed knowledge, content, competencies that are really needed for success, whether it's at a board exam or a competitive exam. So to really focus on building that power curriculum. And then, of course, constructing meaningful, second one for curriculum and assessment would be constructing meaningful assessment. Today, ChatGPT, today you have all of the AI tools. You know what students are doing? They're pushing information from one AI tool into the other, into the other, into the other. By the time it comes out of the fourth one, you can't recognize what it was. So you can't even detect for plagiarisms. They've just become so smart and savvy with this thing. So, yeah. So how do you construct meaningful assessments, which will, I don't mean to trip up the children. That's not the intention. But, and we haven't cracked that. I don't know the answer, but that'll be the focus. To really create and construct meaningful assessments such that children will be using their minds and their human intelligence to navigate whatever want them to navigate, rather than blindly relying on what ChatGPT or any one of these AI engines is throwing up. So I think these are some of the priorities. I think these are also guided by OECD Learning Compass 2030. And I've alluded to that in a webinar before. But I think the three transformative competencies that OECD talks about, the taking responsibility, the reconciling tensions and dilemmas. Look what's happening in our world. And if our children are not taught how to reconcile tensions and dilemmas, what are we teaching them? And then, of course, creating new value. And the creating new value really gets us excited because that's where the SDGs come in. And that is where the challenge-based learning comes in. That's where the design thinking comes in. That's where Edward de Bono's six thinking hats come in. And so using the learning compass as a guiding philosophy for developing or building on the priorities. And I think what we're trying to convert our students into mindful global citizens who will go on to take their rightful place in the world and go on to make a positive difference. But if you read the OECD Jobs of the Future report that recently came out and the World Economic Forum report, it's frightening. 65% of jobs will not exist for our current grade ones. So when our grade ones finish, the 65% will vanish. Of course, a whole new subset will come into play. That's a different story. But so what are we teaching our children? And therefore, I have my favorite word. That's Coddywomple. Those who know me associate with it. Coddywomple is walking in a purposeful manner towards an unknown destination. And I think that's all we can do. We don't know what tomorrow holds. We really don't. But what we do know is what's happening today and what could possibly happen tomorrow. And so we craft the experiences for our children and our staff in a way that'll help them make sense of what's happening. I don't know if you've read the book, The Anxious Generation, but if you've read the book, The Anxious Generation, you'll know that today our children are going through a mental health crisis. We all know that. But why are they going through it? That's what the anxious generation, examines and projects. And what can we do as adults to help them navigate through life, not being so anxious? We have a whole generation of anxious young mothers and fathers, young adults who are anxious. So what can we do? And I think Cottywomple is the answer. Walk in a purposeful manner towards an unknown destination, gathering the intelligence of what we have to shape and chart the future.
Wonderful. I will have my dictionary reading to this Quadrirumple, right? What is Quadrirumple? Is that
Cottywomple. Cottywomple.
Quadriwomple? Okay,
And
wonderful.
can I just add to that? So I think John
Sure.
Hattie, that was the
Mhm.
last thing I want to say, Gaurav, is that
Please, please.
yeah, John Hattie in his body of research, he talks about collective efficacy. And he says the collective efficacy is when all of these things come together and the outcome is far superior than what individually can come through. And so none of this will be in silos, but all coming together to ensure that there is collective efficacy.
Correct. In fact, something I think I also heard very recently, which is like collective wisdom is always better than the individual wisdom. I think there's some great author, not able to recall it, but perfect. I think given you are traveling, given you are doing multiple things, I'm happy that you could still really focus on this. And thank you very much. I think everyone more or less here who is with us would really like to ask few questions, right? If you have, I mean, I think there are few questions at least up my sleeves, which I believe I will take it up, but I would really open the house for each one of you. If you can give us a virtual show of hand, if right, we'll help you unmute and then you can ask your question, or if you have an observation to share with us, right? So that's the way we will do it. At the same time, I had noted down a few things, right? What you said, happy achievers, right? That's what you said, I believe. Happy
Happy
achievers,
achievers and unhappy achievers, yes.
unhappy achievers. Okay.
I see there's someone's asking for a spelling of Coddywomple. So that's Coddwample. Coddywomple. Some words just capture your imagination.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, quite a few of them. And I think you used few which I have noted down, and I'll have to just. In fact, I used it like a post-it right now, so I'm just I'm just figuring out those. But having said this, we will send you the spelling as well. In fact, if we can gather those couple of books which Mrs. Khambatta outlined, we will take those names of the books again and we will share with you. In the meantime, Mona, Dalmia, you have a question. Then Dr. John. In the meantime, also
Yeah,
before you,
hello.
yeah, if you can let us know exactly where are you joining us and which school are you part of, that will help us a little better, right? Mona, over to you.
Yeah, hi. Hello, hi. This is Mona. I'm joining from Pune. I'm founder of DLRC Pune, which is a K to 12 experiential learning center. And
Okay.
yeah, part of this, it was a great talk. Uh, I liked how crisp and concise it was and got the message. Thank you. My question, and one of the points you made was, obviously we're teaching way too much than we should be teaching. We need to teach the children, and we all agree as educators. And then you did make a point about how we can't touch grade 9 and above, and we all agree with that also. So just wanted to know your thoughts about how can we work with the syllabus for lower grades, if you have any thoughts on that.
Sure. So I think when you look at the vertical progression, Mona, first, thank you for the question and the comments. I think when you look at the vertical progression of the curriculum, and if you look at the spiraling of how every alternate year you reinforce certain concepts, how much of it
Yeah.
is, so the biggest misnomer is that knowledge is not necessary. Knowledge is the foundation on which everything else is built. But what is the essential knowledge that you need there? Do we need all the facts and figures that are needed there? So I think even in 9 and 10,
Mm.
this is something that we can seriously put thought to, not necessarily only at the lower levels. Re-examine, have the teachers look at it and say, what knowledge is needed to build competency from this? What is the competency that you need to build? And I think once you connect the knowledge component to the competency component, it becomes a little easy. So if you'd like to explore the Common Core, the American Common Core, they have what they call the power curriculum. And that power curriculum
Mm.
strips the curriculum of its entire, all the extra stuff so that you just have the knowledge and the competency components that are linked out for you.
Okay, that's Interesting. Thank you so much. I'll have a look.
Welcome.
Dr. John, your question, please.
Hi, Gaurav. Thank you, brother. Nargish, I just want to compliment you. I don't have a question. I was really blessed with the great insights, and yes, for a couple of new words which you blessed us with. I found the session to be extremely rewarding. God bless you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. John. Thank you very much. Sure.
I think every one of us will have this question in mind. If you can, Mrs. Khambatta, tell us a little more about this power curriculum. What exactly do you mean by this, right? And or how are you already implementing this in your schools? Or what exactly is this? Yeah.
So, sure. So, I mean, I can only give you a perspective on this. Of course,
Sure.
the curriculum experts who actually carry out the curriculum mapping. But this came to us, meaning we embarked on this journey a couple of years ago when, in the Middle East, we do the TIMS and the PISA and the EPERLs, we do ASSET, and we do all of these benchmark tests. And we had to map our curriculum to ensure that we covered all the topics at the right age. So, for example, TIMS happens in grade 4 and 8, PISA happens for 15-year-olds, EPERLs happens in grade 4. So we said when we looked at it and we looked at our ICSE curriculum, since then we've gone on to become a PYP school. And so we had to do a whole lot of, you can imagine how much of curriculum mapping we've been doing since then. And we looked at the Common Core really for giving us, we looked at Aero from the American Education Reaches Out to work out a model to allow us to differentiate in the classroom, because differentiation in those days was totally alien, a totally alien concept. And I'm linking differentiation because it's linked to the power curriculum. So when we brought all this together and our Dean of Curriculum got our teachers, the subject experts, grade level. So we looked at what is required at grade 8 level for math and science. That's what TIMS does, Trends in International Math and Science. And we backward mapped it. And we said, do we have it in our curriculum? And then we said, what do we need to bring in and where do we need to bring it in? So we looked at the Australian curriculum, we looked at the Ontario curriculum, we looked at the Finland curriculum, we looked at the various curricula, and we said where we looked, of course, the English national curriculum. And so we said, what can we bring in from there to ensure that they learn the content, knowledge, and the skills that are linked, which are required for the exams. And so that became that common thread for us for that, for TIMS. That's what really triggered this for us. And then we realized that there are lots of ancillary stuff which we don't really need to do. And so that we started giving children to read, to do homework. We flipped the learning. We gave homework assignments on stuff that they didn't really need to focus on and do. So they were reading it, they were getting, because how much can you remember? I mean, the memory is just how much do we remember from what we studied in school? And so we said they can do all of that reading over and above, because by the time they come to grade 4, they do read very well. So we stripped it of that and we said all that can be given as flipped learning, as reading, as assignments for holiday homework, for, during the long holidays. And we linked it to that. And then we said, now what we have is the core, and that needs focus and attention. So that's how we arrived at our core curriculum, at our power curriculum.
Okay. Because I was just basing my question on something which I think you already mentioned, and we are all aware of it. Like we say 65% of what we do in a job may not really exist, or whatever that percentage can be. But when we make those changes with respect to what the job would look like, I personally feel, at least in India, the curriculum has not moved at the same pace in terms of the changes it requires, really, right? So, and while we are amidst this entire new education policy being implemented, etc., I will not drag you into that conversation because that's a very India conversation for that matter. But I believe, I think everyone will get benefited is that at the UAE level, how often do you really revisit your curriculum, or it is again more of an yearly cycle or a periodic cycle? What exactly formula do you really
So
go into?
thank you. I'm glad you asked that question. So the NEP is very relevant to us as well, because from
Okay.
6 to 12, we have the ICSE, ISC as well.
Okay.
We are a dual curriculum school. And it definitely is very relevant. And luckily, we were ahead of the curve, because whatever's in the NEP, we were implementing in our school.
True.
So it's kind of come as a really, really happy and pleasant, introduction. But coming back to what was your original question on how do you?
how frequently do
Oh, frequently,
really,
yeah. So we, for us, curriculum review is a living process, and we draw
okay,
that link between the written curriculum, the taught curriculum, and the assessed curriculum.
okay.
Because the written curriculum is just a piece of it can be
Hmm.
stuck on a pedestal, but unless you don't teach it the way it's meant to be taught and enrich it the way it's meant to be enriched, and then assess what you've taught and
Exactly.
and then when you assess, and it's both the formatives and the summatives, and when you do the formatives as well, and oh gosh, they haven't understood this. So what aspect have they not understood? So while we reteach that aspect of it, we go back and say what was written in the curriculum and how was it written, and what should we do differently. So these are some of the things that we are practically doing on a daily basis, and I think so when we do conduct the biannual, actually, not even annual. The big curriculum review happens once in 2 years, not before that.
Okay,
What
okay.
departments do in their department meetings, and this is what makes it the living curriculum.
Hmm.
What they do in their departments is have those discussions around the topic that's taught or the content or the unit that's taught and say, how did it go? What did we struggle with? What advice will we give the next teacher teaching this? What
Hmm.
skills do the previous year students need to have in order to be able to attempt this better? And that's
Correct.
when it goes back into the, so it's a living live
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
thing happening.
absolutely. I think that's a great takeaway for all our leaders. In fact, here back in India, most of them must be already doing it, I'm sure. But at least that's a great refresher, I would say, that you were. Yeah, you were saying something. Please continue with that. I think,
No,
right?
I was just saying that during COVID, we also created the essential skills and knowledge curriculum in middle school for math and for science. So, we looked at the essential skills and knowledge framework that was required, and then we built around that. So that was also an important thing that we did. And I think, I mean, since, they say when you ride a tiger, you can't get off. So in 2011, we were given the outstanding status, the only Indian curriculum school at that point in time to be, and now the only dual curriculum school with an Indian aspect of the curriculum to be given us, so and to retain that. So because we were already riding that tiger, we couldn't get off. So we had to constantly be looking for how to be on top of the game, how to ensure that our students are getting really top-notch marks and are in the top percentile for the TIMSS, PISA, Pearls, ASSET, and all of those benchmarks. So that's what really, and sometimes they say, you get annoyed with, or you tend to curse and say, why am I being subjected to these inspections? Or why does this have to happen? But we realize that that's what pushed us towards our journey of excellence. That's what really made us more resilient and said, no, for the sake of our children, they've got to master this. These are 21st century skills. This is what made us read up on OECD reports, on World Economic Forum
True.
reports, and do all of that.
Absolutely. In fact, yes, that is where uh, I think the system becomes better every passing year. In fact, and I think since you have both the connects, and I would say, given you have also seen NEP now, and you often come to India, I believe that is also something my observation. Uh, you have few schools in India as well. Now, have you seen any specifically post these COVID years and the NEP years, Mrs. Kambata, that you've seen in this Indian school ecosystem really? Because that's where my major interest lies. I think we are reinventing ourselves. Do you think that we are really going the path which is envisaged in NEP, or because when I hear a few quarters of people, they say there is no implementation really roadmap ahead, and they'll find themselves to be a little lost, if I may say. That's the word I can use. What is your sense in that direction?
I think in the tier one cities we definitely see it. The
Mhm.
schools that have the international curricula like the IGCSE or the IB, I mean that's built into the system, so there's
Hmm.
no two ways about it. But
Very handful of them. Hmm.
I also see it in the CBSE schools that are going about it mindfully. I'm more in touch with the tier one cities, to be honest.
Hmm.
I wish I had access to tier two cities and tier three cities. I don't. I'm my sphere of my circle is around the tier one cities, and I do see that the schools where the principals are part of international conferences or international movements like the Round Square or even your IPN, for example, where they constantly goading each other to keep abreast with the latest in education. And even with the NEP, just this transdisciplinary approach, this no working in silos of, science and commerce and all of that. And then the inquiry approach, the competency-based learning, all of that I do definitely see in tier one cities happening, at least with my conversations with principals.
And that's happy to hear, in fact. And as I was mentioning, we will be happy to have questions or any observations from our leaders today who are joining us, right? So any point with which you resonated with Mrs. Khambatta, we would love to hear from you. Yeah, Tarannum, over to you, Tarannum.
Good evening, Gaurav. Good evening, ma'am. I'm Mrs. Taranum, heading a CBSE school in Bangalore called National Center for Excellence. I really like the way your entire message of, how we need to look at education in terms of parents, students, teachers, and administrators was put across, very crisp and precise. You mentioned 2 points about parents being cheerleaders for their children, as well as schools teaching parents on how to, build connection with children. So, could you throw a little light on how in schools can we really do this? Because you very well rightly put that today's parents are the anxious parents, and this anxiety is passed on from them to the children. So, what would you suggest measures? Because we do plenty of things, but still, we want to look at different avenues on how we can kind of push this forward.
Sure. So I think, Taranam, thank you for the question. I think for us, it is finding every opportunity to get parents to engage with their children. And sometimes we do it in small groups, sometimes we do it in large groups. I'll give you an example. The children in grade 4 were doing the concept of the marketplace, and they were also doing global citizenship or globalization, the impact of globalization as part of their PYP studies. And so at the end of the 4-week units that they did, they said, bring the two concepts together, the marketplace as well as, globalization. And we gave them a challenge to take home. And they worked with their teachers and their parents and said, bring out the entrepreneurial mindset and come together to work for a cause, to raise funds for a school, to build a school in Nepal. So we gave them that brief, and then you will be so amazed. I wish, maybe I'll share with Gaurav and he can share further. But what we saw was children, finding out ways of creating scented candles and aloe vera gel and whatever they were having in their households. Somebody put up, like a Delhi hut, they put up a Dubai hut stall, and they were selling chana mamra, and they were selling bhel. And they were selling, they made out of latex, they made, jewelry, and 2 dirhams, 1 dirham, 5 dirhams. They were selling these things. And we invited parents to come in as well. So for the whole month, the parents, the children, you use pester power. The children just kept going back to the parents and saying, no, we have to do this. No, we have to raise these funds. No, we have to. Ultimately, they raised 8,000 dirhams in one day.
Wow.
8,000 dirhams, and they set up 4 stalls, and they created little vials of perfume. They created, I spent 50 dirhams on the day, I have to admit, because I had only that much time, but they didn't let me go. They came to my office, held me by my hand and pulled me and said, Mrs. Khambatta, come on, you got to buy with us. And I only had 50 dirhams. I was feeling so sheepish. I only had 50 dirhams only, but I spent it. And I spent all of the money, and I came back with a bag full of stuff, but little things, they made, they wove and made friendship bands, and they made bookmarks, and they made all sorts of things, and some more elaborate than others. But our parents came out in such large numbers and supported this, and they came back and they said, we enjoyed it. We enjoyed taking the children out to buy the products, to do some research, to, help them create it, give them feedback, because when they brought it to the teachers said, this is not good enough. No one's going to buy it from you. Go and ask mom how to do it. Go and ask dad how to do it. And so they went back and they pestered their parents. And so instead of becoming, aloof and just talking about the math and the science, they started talking about these things. Should I price it at 2 dirhams or 3 dirhams? Should I, what should I do? The little girls learned how to put henna, and that day I was, doing the ACR conference. So I was a speaker there. So I couldn't, they said, please, can we put henna on you? And I said, no, you can't. I can't go with wet henna on my hand to speak. But that was the enthusiasm that they generated. So I think finding those meaningful opportunities with the parents and children. This is just one example I'm giving. For example, we had a parents' sports day, and we said, come with your children. And we had a large number. I don't know how many of you know, but I post every day on my Instagram to bring the community together. I think one of my responsibilities as a principal is to bring the community together. And every single day, I will post one video on Instagram. And if you see the parents' sports day, they were out of kilter, out of coordination, and they are doing, tararara, but that left and right leg is going. But the children were watching, and children learn by observing, and children were watching their parents and saying, like, we said, look, you're inspiring your children. So, it's finding every little excuse to bring parents in to get them to do special, the specialist talks with the children, assembly talks, to get them to volunteer for overnight camps and for treks, to get them to, there's so many ways you can get them to be, and this is all linked to the curriculum. It's all linked to teaching and learning. It's not fluff.
Yeah,
I hope I
thank you
answered
so
your
much.
question, Tarun.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much.
I think even I'm just sharing with, I think everyone in the audience would know it's CBSE has also gone ahead and I think came out with the circular, I believe, where they are really, really investing time in parent partnership, in fact, right? That's what I have heard. And Aprajita, yes, Aprajita, over to you.
What a lovely exchange of ideas and things. Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing it all. I am in Hyderabad. I am leading an IB school. It's a continuum school, and I'm the secondary school principal. And we're doing a lot of this. As you said, in an IB school, everything comes in organically. But recently, I was enlightened by what the CBSE schools are doing through the NEP, as Mr. Gaurav just pointed out. You integrate SDGs into everything. And that brings out the intercultural mindedness, the global citizenship, and the engagements with the community and how you're, what we call as service learning, how that comes through for every little bit. So it was quite an enlightenment for me to hear that tier 3 cities and smaller schools, they were doing so much through the NEP and otherwise, and integrating SDGs. So that was something I really, really loved. And I thought I must share it here. When we say that we do not know what's happening, definitely a lot is happening. The sad part is that most of us are in some ways divorced and in pockets understanding what is happening in education. But I think this is the time where India is on the rise and shining. And I think the more we talk about these things and we have platforms like the one that we have and we all are engaged with, the better it is for all of us to be sharing ideas and things. So thank you so much for that, ma'am.
In fact, thank you for mentioning this. I didn't know. All I do know is whenever I've interacted with tier 2 and tier 3 city principals, they're very hungry, to pick up any little thing that they can. And I think I think that in itself is the whole growth mindset. This whole always wanting to learn, micro-credentialing and all of that. They are truly championing that. So thank you for sharing. I totally agree. It's just that I don't know the extent to which it is actually happening. But I do know they're very hungry for it.
Thank you, Aprajita. And I believe there was someone on the chat who wanted to ask. I have unmuted you, Miss Sanjita.
Yes. Good
Go
evening,
ahead,
everyone.
please.
Good
Good
evening,
evening.
everyone. And it's a really very nice talk, and I'm really delighted to hear ma'am also and talking about various, as I'm from CBSE school from Gurugram, Ryan International School, Gurugram. So as I want to add that CBSE, even in our curriculum, like how we have added the parents and community contribution towards the education of their children. Like we have started from during the COVID, we started one of the Ryan Championship, all round Ryan Championship kind of events from grade 2 till grade 9th. So in this, actually, we pick up various topics. For example, right now,
and it goes whole round, whole year. We have started with the young Mickey, grade 2. So you can understand the cartoons and all, and the parents will sit with the child. First, the teacher will brief the parents and they will make a PPT together, the whole family. It's a family show. And online presentation will be done by the child and the parents will be there. So there will be a participation of the community. Then young Columbus, with this, they will learn the various places where they have visited. They have to put the pictures, family pictures. It's all about the family. Together, they will make the PPT. Then young Satyarthi, young Ambedkar, young Kalpana. So we have given, these kind of topics to different grades. So by this, family contribution, family time, and children are learning that how to make PPT, and family, parents, everybody is working together. And of course, yes, we are teaching the values to the children. So this is what we do in CBSE school. And in nowadays, we have created G6 in every class, because peer learning is very important, because AI is there in our lives. So we have to somewhere involve the group where we can check each other's work and different contributions. So we have in every class, grade 1 to grade 12, we have G6 system. Whatever presentation, they will do it in G6. So first they will discuss online, then they will come up in the physical class, and then the entire group will present. So entire
Wonderful.
class will, yes.
Very nice. Thank you. Very nice.
Wonderful, Miss Sajida, for sharing that. Sunita Madan, if you're here with us in the session, I think she posted her question on the chat. How to motivate teachers towards a common vision? Would you like to answer that?
I can try. So I think teachers, Gaurav, need, they can get jaded because, it's relentless.
Absolutely, I know.
It's relentless, and they can get jaded. And there comes a time when, they wonder what they're doing and why they're doing it. And that's when the importance of tying it all to the vision is important. And so we have a number of ways in which we do it. And when you involve teachers, it's fantastic. So subtly and without letting it be so overt as let's motivate our teachers, without making it seem like that. So I think if we look at, the neuroscience behind, how to get people engaged and involved. It's, first, authentic care. I think when teachers know that you care for them, that's when it releases two things. One is, a feel-good factor that, yes, somebody is looking out for me. But also the motivation kicks in, because then you want to give your best for the person who's caring for you. And these are not just transactional conversations, not just, for the sake of paying lip service, but when they genuinely know you care. And so when there's a consistent culture of care, I think when you really want your teachers to push the boundaries and do something specific, they rise to the occasion. And people don't realize the power of, that sense of community that you build just by genuinely caring. And I don't think there's a human being on earth who cannot genuinely care. I mean,
True.
you spend more time with teachers than you do with anybody else. So having those conversations, and I can't tell you how many casual conversations on a corridor have led to something inspiring that has come out, and a teacher saying, yeah, I want to do this and I'm going to do this. A very recent example, it still hasn't happened, but I'm excited by what's happening. So we had a very narrow space in our, on our spiral staircase, and it's just a little space. In fact, you have to jump in to access it, and we had a little waterfall there with 3 plants around it. And then that also went off for some reason. So, I was talking to our head of art and I said, let's create a really nice Zen garden here, Zen space. I said, but this is such a small space. So when you challenge them with the what ifs, I said, it's such a small space here. Can we do this? And she said, and I genuinely meant it. I wasn't just fooling around.
True.
I said, can we make the Zen garden here? And she said, let's see, how much space do we have? And then she said, why are we only looking down? Let's look up and let's look at the side. And then she said, so we can put this here and that here. And I said, okay. I said, let's look at the budget we have. And I said, now go shopping over the weekend. And so she said, can I take 2 people? I said, take whoever you want. The school car was provided. And she went and she gave me a drawing, and she's created a whole OneDrive set of folders on inspirational and where she's drawn her inspiration from. And she's got the whole thing pat. Now, all she needs to do is get some technical, water teacher.
Correct.
And I can't wait to see how that comes up. But she's going to take this, I know, back into her classroom because she's inspired. So
Absolutely.
these little things, we don't give that enough, attention. I know my friend is here, and I know what she does with her teachers in Assam. I don't know if she wants to unmute and share, but I do know that she does a lot of inspiring stuff with her teachers. So I think motivating those teachers comes from, I think, a deep rooted from the Ibuki. You care from the Ibuki, they know it and they respond to it.
Well said. I think that is. You wanted to put Miss Malvika on the spot, or who did you wanted to put on the
Yes,
spot?
Miss Malvika. I don't know if
she's
she'll unmute,
she's
but
she's shying away. But we, in the meantime, you gather strength, Miss Malvika. We go to Monica. Monica, your question, and then we come to Malvika. And I have one more question on the chat. Shefali, I'll take that question up. And we have 7 more minutes to go to our officials stop. So if you have any question, please give it to us. And more importantly, if you can give it to us on the virtual show off, and that will be better. Yeah, Monica, please go ahead.
Very good evening to all. And ma'am, really thank you from the bottom of my heart for expressing so generously so many good thoughts and ideas. There was too much to take from your talk today, and I would like to, call it as 3 E's, ma'am. It was effective and very earnestly expressed and also very encouraging. So thank you so much for encouraging all of us for such wonderful ideas. We actually have got a lot of takeaways, ma'am. Though it was 10 points, but we actually, while you were elaborating upon, we could catch lot many good things, new things. And as far as ma'am motivating teachers are concerned, I would just like to add upon the formula of 3M, which I follow. That we are supposed to monitor our teachers, of course, but before that we have to follow other 2 M's also. We have to mentor them and motivate them. Mentor them, what are they supposed to do, how they are supposed to do, what is the best way of doing it, and motivating them, why are we doing this. If you know the answer to why, then how to do it is very easy and spontaneous. You can have hundreds of ways of doing it if you know why we are doing. And then finally monitoring them.
Monica, I'm going to change your formula from 3M's to MMC because
Okay.
the mentor changed that to coach. And I think if
Okay.
you adopt the
Right.
instructional coaching approach,
Uh-huh.
mentorship is perhaps needed at one stage, but teachers quickly move beyond the mentorship stage. And it's just
Mhm.
the experience that we've had. And when it gets into the coaching phase, you'll find your impact is tenfold.
Wonderful, wonderful. Ma'am, taken. MMC is right. A very good one. A small apology, ma'am. Please, can you repeat the first point you mentioned because I joined late and I just could hear the last part of it and it was quite interesting. So, can you please repeat the first point you started with? It was a nice analogy or terminology you were using, ma'am.
The one on the disengaged teen by Rebecca Winthrop, that one, and Jennifer.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that book, I started off by saying that children, Gaurav, is it okay to respond now to that? Yeah. So I was talking about the first group of individuals for whom you have priorities for the new year, and that is the learners, the children. And these teens are actually disengaged today. And how do we get them to be engaged? I think that is my first priority. And if you read that book, and I'll send Gaurav the link to the podcast. And that fireside chat is a very nice one. And they say that there are 4 types of learners. There are passengers, and these are people who are, floating in and out, sometimes paying attention, sometimes not. And these are achieved because it's not interesting for them. And then we have the achievers, and we have the happy achievers, and then we have the dissatisfied achievers. And then we have the resistors who resist everything. Probably they are your gifted ones who really are well ahead of the game and are bored by, they're not in the state of flow because their competency is at a high level and your challenge is at a low level. And so they're not, in that state of flow. And the last is the explorer who come to school very excited because every day they want to learn something new, explore, go ahead, do different things. So those were the 4. And then we said, how do we channelize it for them? We said through personalization, through artificial intelligence, and through gamification.
Wonderful, ma'am. Thank you so very much. Really appreciate.
You're welcome.
And looking forward for hearing you again, ma'am.
Thank you. I love your positive attitude.
Thank you.
Shefali, your question was about the process. How in your institution, Mrs. Khambatta, you develop a sense of responsibility in the school, I think, which you mentioned as one of your points. That's the question.
So I'll tell you what we do for children, and it's going to come as a bit of a shocker. And I mean, I'm delivering a last 2 minute shock, I know, but still. So I think we try and remove the trappings of extrinsic motivation, and we try and focus on intrinsic motivation. So our school has no head boy, no head girl, no house captains, no prefects. We follow the holocracy model, and we get our children. So we have the council system, and our children take a pledge. So they are pledge officers on duty, and they take a pledge of service for the 13 councils that we have. And the school, so they step up, take responsibilities. They've got a vision statement. They've got to make a mission statement. They have a small budget. They've got to commit to at least one, engagement per term. So they do 3 engagements per term. We look at impact of that. So we build the entrepreneurial mindset as well. And then any fundraisers that they do goes for charity. So I think for children, that's how we build a sense of responsibility. And we link everything to SDGs. I know we have the SDGs only till 2030. After that, I don't know what the world will anchor in, but we give them the SDGs to think about and to build their stuff around. So I think it's about self-management. Remember we talked about self-awareness and self-management. So I think that focus to bring it on self-awareness and self-management is through removing all the trappings of extrinsic motivation, keeping the focus on intrinsic motivation.
That I hope answers for you, Shefali. So before we leave this, Miss Malvika.
Hi, Nargish. It's so wonderful to see you after so long. I simply barged into this session, accidentally I opened IPN and I saw Nargish Khambatta addressing the session. I said, I must attend this. I didn't even register. I entered into it. And yeah, I'm so much in sync with whatever you've said and completely agree with whatever strategies you are using in school. I'm trying to implement many of them in my own school, in fact, most of them. And hopefully things will progress in the right direction. And when you talked about involving parents and those entrepreneurship, very recently we had a big entrepreneurship fest where children themselves were making all the stuff that you were talking about. And even the jewelry making was there, a part of it, where even boys were making jewelry and selling it. And yes, it was big fun. A lot of things came up there. And even the food stalls were there where they were cooking food and selling it. And even they were baking also. And then even the perfume thing you were talking. So yeah, yes, I think after hearing you, I feel we are moving in the right direction. And I very strongly feel you have to give the freedom to the teachers to work. And unless you give that freedom, because they are the master of their subject and they know the best. And I never go and observe their classes. I tell them it is the students who will come back to me and give you your feedback. If students are happy, I think you're doing well in your class. So I do give them that freedom. Thank you. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Mrs. Khambatta. And obviously, I think you started a little shaky. You got a little, underwhelmed by the time you was looking at how many people are joining. I think people of quality stayed back with your discussion. That should be the highlight of our takeaway. But I totally enjoyed it. And I think when Mrs. Khambatta was talking about the parent partnership, I think I have just one suggestion to make quickly. I don't really want to take away much of anyone's time, which is that schools in India, or I would say even maybe in the UAE, somehow can actually develop what I call it as a parent skill repository. In fact, it's actually an idea which I've just floated to one of the leaders who really wanted me to give my feedback on the CBSE circular which has come out, wherein they are wanting to work these parent engagement with the school in a very big way, because I think every parent can bring a skill set to the institution. And if we have a repository which outlines it, which is just an Excel sheet, maybe Gaurav, Yadav can do quizzing in the school. And if he can come and do that for the student and can train them, it's a great value add. And every parent would love to do it voluntarily, if I may say so. So I think in India, at least, the parent partnership is underutilized. And I'm sure leaders here in this panel and people who are joining us today in this conversation would possibly do something more concrete about that, I would say, rather than involving them in what we already do. I think that there's nothing, not to take away anything which has already been done, but I think it can really, really be a little more substantive. But having said this is not about me. This is not about my idea. This was Mrs. Khambatta's session. Thank you very much. We totally loved it. The entire chat window is flooded with thanks and so many thanks. But more than that, we did a session after a long time. We had quality conversation and we had quality audience with us. That's the more important part for this. I hope you have a great stay in India as usual. While I'm unhappy that you're not traveling to Delhi and you're straight flying back to UAE. But whenever we get to host you back in India, which we will be doing something very, very soon, planning around you for that matter. Until then, thank you very much and have a great evening. Right.
Thank you, Gaurav. Thank you, everyone. I've made a note of parent skill repository for sure. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Pleasure.
Thank
Take
you.
care, everyone, and hope to see you all
Bye-bye.
soon. Bye-bye.